I'm Kemini Amano, and today on Hot Issues, I sit with the man whose acquittal from a high treason trial seemed to have been welcomed by all well-meaning Ghanaians. ACP, you're welcome to Hot Issues.
Thank you very much.
When the court ruled that you were acquitted, you burst out singing. Why?
I had been expecting it, and I just had to give the glory to God. And that's why I waited until it was all over, and I came down and started singing with my friends and my family and my friends, giving glory to God and thanking Jehovah because He alone had done it.
It had been 5 long years of going to court and going into detention. What was the most challenging period or point within that period?
The most challenging periods were the 2 occasions that I was detained. First for 3 months, but the second one mostly for 2 weeks. We didn't have access to our families. We were at the BNI. The first instance too, for the first week, I wasn't having access to my family, and it would take your family a whole day to meet you. They were frustrated. Your family cannot meet you today, meet you tomorrow. Sometimes they can only see you in a week. But thankfully, I was there for just 5 days, and I didn't like the treatment they were giving, so my lawyer applied to the court, and the court ordered that I should be detained in police custody. So I was sent to Ministry's police station, where my family could visit me daily, and that was more humane for me.
I see. What went through your head during that period of detention as you sat quietly those 2 weeks, as you sat quietly between November and January? What did you think about those nights?
Within those periods, let me start with the first day. When I was sent to the BNI custody the first night, let me say that I slept like a baby. I had a good conscience. I knew I hadn't done anything untoward. I was only wondering why these people were doing what they were doing to me. And so I didn't have any issues. My conscience was very clear, and so I slept very well. But I saw it as an opportunity also, because right from there, I started putting my thoughts together. I knew I was going to go through a system which I had known to be a bit funny, but going through it personally, I thought I should begin to put my thoughts on paper, and that's what I did.
I want to understand when you say that you knew a system that was a bit funny. What do you mean by that?
I knew you could, when you are arrested at a BNI, for instance, your family will not have access to you. You didn't have any idea about time, because nobody cares about whether, you only know that it is day and it is night. Those were the only thing that you knew, and that's the difference between the police. Nobody will have, you don't have access to phone, you cannot make phone calls to, but at the police station, at least you have to reach your family. And if you need your family for something urgent, the police are obliged to help you to do that. And police do that very often in all charge offices. But in BNI, you will not be allowed to do that kind of thing. And those were some of the most challenging times that I had at the BNI. But in the police custody, if you needed some help, the police are ready to help you, because their mandate is quite different from that of service to the people.
What are some of the thoughts you put on paper?
Wow. I have a whole book that will be launching very soon, and I must be frank with you, and I'm working on it. I'm finalizing it. It's been edited at various places already. I've talked about my deal at the BNI. I've talked about some of the inhumane treatment over there. I've talked about the fact that they do not allow lawyers there, and some of the things that some of my colleagues told me about them, because remember, during the second arrest, they put all of us together in one custody. And therefore, we're able to interact and share ideas as to what happened to each of us, which I've put on paper. And
tell me a little bit about that.
I want to, for instance, say that in some cases, some of them were beaten.
Were you beaten?
And nobody could touch me.
Why do you think they couldn't touch you?
Because they knew I know them very well, and therefore they could not do that to me. But they did it to others. And for instance, they took people's secret codes on their phones and accessed and forced them, which should have been done at the court with a court order. But they tortured some of them, and that's their own testimony, and they gave it even in open court. And then took it and had access to their phones. And in some cases, deleted whatever they wanted to delete. But mine, nobody could force me to have access to my code. And those were some of the things that I'm talking about.
Do you think your ranking in the police may have played a role in that?
I wouldn't say that. But maybe they know why they couldn't do that.
Let's go back to when you were released from the NIB to police custody. At the time, you were a police officer of great repute who was facing this serious situation. You were put in cells, just like the people you had handcuffed in the past. When you looked at that, you look back at that period, what feelings does that bring to you?
Well, it wasn't anything strange to me because I had always known that policemen had been arrested before. As an officer, it's possible you could even detain another officer for misconduct, for certain behaviors that you think were untoward. So it wasn't anything strange to me, but maybe my rank and other things. But it wasn't a problem for me because when I was sent to custody, especially Ministries Police Station, they were a bit concerned because apparently I was senior to all of them there. Some of them were even my students. But you see, I told them, look, I'm here in a different capacity. And I didn't give them any cause to worry at all. I made sure I didn't cross the counter. And there was no day I even crossed the counter. There were times officers came and said, oh, come and stand. I said, no. This is where I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to cross the counter. So I never, for all the period that I was at that place, I never crossed the counter. Just to ensure that their work was smooth and I didn't want to give them any problem.
When you asked yourself, why are these people doing that? What answers did you give yourself as to why somebody will be doing that or some people may be doing this to you?
Are you talking about my arrest?
The entire situation.
You know, I made this statement somewhere yesterday, and I'm repeating it here. You see, when as an investigator, because I've been a police, out of my 36 years career, I've been an investigator for well over 12 years. As an investigator, when you are doing your investigation, sometimes not most of the times, you reconstruct the scene. In other words, you go back to find out how did it all start. And when I reconstructed this whole thing, I could tell you, and I'm surprised that certain people do not realize that this whole thing started from the IDEG presentation that I did in 2018, where I critiqued not sitting government, but a system in place where the police council is dominated by the party in power and the government in power. And for that matter, we could not have an independent police operating. Because definitely, they're in your hands and you could move them. You could move the IGP anywhere, anytime. And the commissioners could be moved anyhow. The president at any point in time could instruct where a particular commissioner should be because it is part of the constitution. And therefore I critique that system. I think from that point, looking at the people at the forum or at the workshop, and the fact that defense intelligence and other people, the CID, the police corpus and other people were there, once you begin to talk about this kind of things in a tough way, and especially in uniform, as an assistant commissioner, you are on national security radar, and they'll be watching you. And even after my presentation, a lot of friends, even from their own side, called me to say, look, be careful, they are looking out for you. The least thing you do, they'll take you on. And so I wasn't surprised.
I see.
And earlier on, I had said that a very senior member of government had threatened me on a platform that I shared with him for expressing my opinion on what constitutes civil uprising. We were all discussing. After a while, he came back to say he's off the line or he's off the mark. He must be brought to order. So all these things played on my mind, and I knew where it was coming from.
I see. I want us to stick with the start of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, you say that it started from IDEG.
Yeah.
Prosecution also thinks that it's your association with TAG that began all of these things. So let's talk about that. You and TAG.
Yeah.
How did the relationship begin?
If you wouldn't mind, I would want to make a comment about a particular incident when I was at BNI so that it will set certain records straight.
Absolutely.
If you recall, I went to court on the 6th of November 2019 in uniform. And it raised a lot of eyebrows. And people, because I was in custody, I came back to read how people condemned me as an officer. Why should you? You should have known better. Take note, I was invited to BNI in uniform, fully dressed. The BNI decided to detain me whilst in uniform. In other words, they asked me to put my clothes, uniform aside and detain me. They didn't have the wisdom, and I want to be emphatic, they didn't have the wisdom and the professional ethics to take me to my house, to search me or to do anything. Mark these words, I've been accused of abetting a crime, a high treason, and I was never searched. Nothing of that was done. I was just placed in custody. They didn't give me opportunity to go and take any of my clothes. I stayed in custody from Monday, Tuesday, and on Wednesday, they said, we are going to court. What were they expecting me to dress in? The only clothes available was my uniform. So I wore my uniform in the full glare of the BNI officers. They took me into their vehicle and sent me to court. Could anybody blame me for going to court in uniform, or were they, excuse my language, expect me to go to court in my panties? This was some of the unprofessional approach of the BNI, which people didn't understand, and yet sought to attack a poor person who was so vulnerable and had been detained. If you arrest somebody, go and search the person, make sure that he has the appropriate clothes, and then put the uniform there. And then at the end of the day, you can now say, well, you can't wear this uniform, wear the whatever. And if I had another uniform, there was no way I was going to wear that. In any case, if I had decided that, look, I wasn't going to wear that uniform, could you have imagined what would happen? They will say, Agordzo refuses to go to court. So I wore my uniform and I went to court. And yet they came back blaming me for wearing that, including the prosecution team, the Attorney General's team, and other things. People just express their ignorance on some of these things. And sometimes I feel very bad about it. But I thank you for the opportunity to explain to the world that this was what happened. It was the unprofessional practice of the BNI at the time, now called NIB, that caused me to wear that.
I see.
In any case, they knew I was wearing it. And that was the only uniform or clothes available to me. Right. I couldn't have gone there without clothes. Without
anything.
Now, so come back to
yes, so let's talk about what prosecution says is the genesis of all this.
Yeah.
Your relationship or association with the civil society group, Take Action Ghana. How did you get in touch with them? How did you begin this relationship?
I'm not surprised. Definitely the prosecution couldn't have told you the genesis was IDEG, of course. But I agree that they have to take it from TAG. I've already narrated the story that TAG, Dr. McPalm contacted me in November when I was traveling to Haiti on UN mission. I was then in Uganda, Entebbe. And I was doing a program there before. So I received a call, a WhatsApp call from an unknown number. And then the person introduced himself as Dr. Makpam, who owned an NGO, is a medical officer who also owned an NGO. And the NGO, he was trying to explain to me what the NGO did or was doing at the time. So I said, okay, fine. If you have an NGO, send me the profile of the NGO. And because he wanted me to join them so that I could be part of it. So I said, send me the profile of the NGO. And when he sent me the profile of the NGO, amongst others, it was stated, and it is still stated, that it is democracy-oriented NGO, helping to mobilize people, civil society and other people to work towards development of the country and in advocacy, in education and other things. Based on that, I agreed. This profile was read in court on Wednesday as part of the reasons why I was acquitted and discharged. So based on that, I joined TAG. And I also joined a few other platforms, sub-platforms. On all the platforms that I joined, there was nothing discussed about coup d'etat or forceful removal of the government in power. Whatever we discussed was democratic issues, battling political vigilantes, and election violence, and all kinds of things. Those were the things, and how to ensure that our democracy works. Those were the things we discussed. And that is why till today, they have not been able to link me with any statement that I made or was suggested to have been made by Dr. Makpam against me. I
see, but prosecution also made use of the word Arab Springs a lot.
That's interesting.
How do you fit in that? Or how did they try to fit you in that?
Okay. The prosecution used the term, let me explain something. The prosecution used the term Arab Spring to say that it originated from me, and it's true.
Okay.
In one of our discussions with Dr. Makpam, he sought my views on Arab Spring. What is it? And do you think that it could happen in Ghana? I expressed my opinion on what it is and the fact that it could happen in Ghana, and that some of the signs are already present in Ghana. It was an opinion. In any case, remember, how many times have we not heard people in Ghana talked about Arab Spring? Were we not in Ghana here when a certain presidential candidate of a very important major party in this country used that term in a very famous radio station? Was he arrested? When one archbishop used it, he even described it as Arab Revolution. And he said it's going to sweep through the whole of West Africa. Was he arrested? When Dr. Nyahota Maklo mentioned civil uprising imminent in Ghana, was he arrested? And many others who have cautioned that, look, this is the issue. In any case, what is Arab Spring? When Egyptians sat at Tahrir Square for almost 3 weeks or 21 days, and the president resigned, was it a forceful removal? Listen, people should understand what Arab Spring is. It is a democratic means of expressing dissent. Just like demonstration can turn violent, common demonstration can. Did it not turn violent? Did we call it forceful removal? No, we didn't. So the fact that people on a spontaneous demonstration, in some cases turn violent, does not make it a coup d'etat. You cannot equate Arab Spring to a coup d'etat. And let me just land. And therefore, even if you want to, look at Tahrir Square. Tahrir Square was a situation where people sat there. They just went a sit-down kind of thing. And they sat there for weeks and said, you must do something about this situation. Was it also a forceful one? So people must understand. And if they don't understand, I insist that they must learn. You can't equate Arab Spring to a coup d'etat. It is a misunderstanding of the term, and if they don't understand, they should learn.
We're going to talk a bit more about that, but let's take a break. When we come back, ACP Agordzo is here with us. Welcome back to Hot Issues. My guest today is ACP Dr. Benjamin Agordzo. Doc, you know, you say that if they don't understand, they should understand. Was it an issue of not understanding with prosecution, or it was just a malicious attempt to persecute you?
In my opinion, it was both. First, they didn't understand. They equated Arab Spring to a coup d'etat, and they pushed that agenda strongly, because if they really understood, then they would have known that it wasn't going to stick, it wasn't going to work. And because they didn't understand, and remember, when I was even acquitted, a minister came out to say, well, if they had done their work very well, they could have ensured that I wouldn't have been acquitted, because, I mean, how could a senior officer be talking about Arab Spring on a platform? He had forgotten how his presidential candidate then talked about the same Arab Spring and was never arrested. You see, so it was really a persecution and a misunderstanding. That's why I insist that they should learn. And it was also a persecution because, if you may allow me, look at a situation where they are claiming that the coup plot was alleged on a particular platform. And by the time they came to court, they didn't know that I was not on that platform. They assumed that I was on that platform. Now, assuming they were correct that I was on that platform, there were other people on that platform. There were professors on that platform. There were medical officers on that platform. There were lawyers on that platform, some of whom contributed monies, sometimes in dollars, towards a medical outreach program initiated by Dr. McPalm. Why didn't they arrest those ones? Why did they single me out? When I was not even on that platform, they singled me out and charged me for court. But they left all those people out.
For your thoughts and for your contribution to TAG?
Well, for whatever reason, because...
Monetary-wise also?
Well, I'm saying that others also contributed. And they were even on the platform where it was alleged they planned the coup. I wasn't even on that platform.
So again...
So it was persecution.
Right. And I do want to, you know, clarify on the 6 of those who were standing trial were found guilty of high treason. You, on the other hand, were found not guilty of abetment to this high treason. What I want to understand is there a relationship between the 4 of you who were found not guilty of abetment to this, 3 of you who were found not guilty of abetment to this crime, and the 6 who were found guilty?
Let me say that I didn't know any of the other people who were acquitted.
Never heard of them?
I never heard of them. Seydou, I never knew him until we were all placed in the same custody, or maybe we met in court. Colonel Gameli, I never knew him. I had never known the name or met him ever. The others, accused persons who were sentenced, I had never met them anyway. The only person I had met in my life was Dr. McPalm, where I gave him 2,000, and it was in connection with that medical outreach program. The BNI wasn't there, the NIB wasn't there, and yet they assumed that the money was meant for something else instead of what I had told them it was meant for.
So again, help me understand. At what point did you know that, well, would you say that the common denominator between those who were acquitted and those who were found guilty is Take Action Ghana?
I wouldn't say...
Is that what you gleaned from the trial?
I wouldn't say that. There were some of them who were not on Take Action Ghana.
Do you think that perhaps this group may have presented themselves falsely to you based on the outcome of this trial?
I wouldn't say so, because you see, we had a general platform, Take Action Ghana. Then according to the prosecution, which I also found to be true in their disclosures, there was another platform which existed before I even came, and I wasn't ever put on that platform. That's where they alleged certain things were discussed, certain things were planned towards removing the government. I wasn't part of it. Then, once I came on the platform, there were other platforms, other WhatsApp platforms that we opened to facilitate the discussions. And on all those platforms, we actually discussed democracy-oriented issues of moving TAG forward to make it a credible NGO. Now, if somebody had issues with those on the TAG executive platform, it was completely up to them to deal with them. I wasn't part of it.
You wouldn't know.
And I wouldn't know. And I don't want to talk about it.
Fair point. You have publicly accused the defense minister of being behind the arrest and prosecution. What was informing, that conclusion?
Interesting. I never mentioned the name, but once you have mentioned the name, the
designation,
that's interesting. I am currently on the same platform with the defense minister. The name of the platform is Alert with Adam Bona. Now, on that platform, we have the defense minister, the interior minister, we have politicians, we have spokespersons of this current government, we have police officers, we have military officers, retired and active, and we have all kinds of people. The media people, most of the media people are even on that platform. So there was a comment, or somebody posted something about a caption that civil uprising is imminent, Dr. Nyahuta Mekulu. And then it generated discussion, and we all shared our views. Some agreed, some didn't agree. I realized there was, even at that point, a misunderstanding of the term. And so I made my point forcefully to say that, look, some of these elements are there. We better take steps to avert them rather than denying them. Now, these were some of the comments. I'm just paraphrasing what I said. Now, these comments went and nobody talked about it. Then, months after or weeks after, when the issue of this alleged coup protests were arrested, there was discussion about this. And some people were saying, oh, it couldn't have been coup. Others would say kitchen knife coup and others. So we were all chatting, and I also chat. I was also part of it. Then all of a sudden, the defense minister reposted that comment I had told you about, and then added, he's way off the mark. He must be brought to order. I'm just quoting him. He's way off the mark and must be brought to order. I protested why anybody should threaten me on this platform. I reported the issue to Adam Bona, who is the creator, who created the platform and whose name is on the platform. Adam Bona contacted him and came back to me to say that, well, he has spoken to him that, look, this is an open platform and so and so, and therefore you should allow people to express their views. These are all on record, and we could go back to it, and he himself, and I mean anybody on that platform could access what I'm talking about. And so I was threatened by the minister. And if just barely 2 weeks after the threat, I was arrested, where would I look? I could only look at I can only attribute it to the defense minister. And don't also forget that the institution which started the investigation on this alleged coup was an institution under the supervision of the defense minister.
So that's your suspicion?
I mean...
Or much more than suspicion?
Much more than suspicion. Because he had threatened me that he was bringing me to order. What else could he do than to ask them to investigate me? And somehow, when they got to know that my name I was part of the TAG platform, they said, no, we must get him.
What's your relationship with TAG now?
Well, I'm still on TAG platform. You see, it's not been proscribed. Nobody has banned that. And so I'm still there. And I'm there on purpose. Because if I had removed myself from the platform, I wasn't, it will be like, okay, so you knew what was coming, so you removed yourself from it. I didn't. I'm still there. Many people have left. In some cases, I'm even the only person left on the platform. I'm telling you, a number of platforms. So in some cases, I'm the only person left. But I'm still there. I'm still there because of reasons such as what we are talking about today. And I was there because I knew if I had removed myself, I couldn't have had access to the information on the platform to defend myself. If I had removed myself, how could I get all the information that I needed to disprove the allegations against me?
If this was an attempt to gag you, target you, do you think it would have achieved its purpose by now? Has it achieved the purpose to gag you?
Well, I mean, you could answer this question better. Looking at what I'm talking about here, has it gagged me? By my nature, I've always spoken my mind, even in the police service. And I must admit that I've had fair problems in the police service because I've always spoken my mind. And if you wouldn't mind, I can preempt that and just tell you one or two occasions where I've had problems for speaking my mind and to challenge even certain authorities. One occasion was in Bolga in 2007, where a powerful woman, in quotes, decided to use the police facility, the back of the police cells. I was the commander there. I was the superintendent of police. He used the back of the police station. Virtually, his clients passed behind the cells to access his hotel. When there was a thoroughfare, I closed it. The woman came to me and said, "My son," I said, "No, please, we can't sacrifice the interests of the police for your interests. So use the thoroughfare or the route to your place, or whatever, the route to your place." The woman went and reported me to the regional commander. The regional commander called me. I went there. He agreed with me after my explanation. We came back to supervise to inspect the place, and he was happy that I took that step. 3 days after, he entered my office with the woman and said, "Open the place for the woman." I said, "No, I can't do that. You can't sacrifice the interest of the police for the woman." And so match me to the IGP. Do you know that this matter ended in my dismissal in 2007?
I see. From
the police service. I appealed against it. Eventually, when they upheld my appeal, they reduced me from superintendent to DSP. And I had to climb again to assistant commissioner.
Which is where, again, you had your problem.
Which is where, again, I'm having another problem.
I want to talk about, the police service, you and this trial.
Yeah.
You were also undergoing concurrently disciplinary, proceedings within the service. You were interdicted.
I was interdicted, but I never went through any disciplinary procedures.
Right.
The only thing was that I was interdicted, but I had a whole problem with that interdiction.
Yeah, I want to talk about that interdiction.
Yeah.
That interdiction should have been lifted by now if disciplinary proceedings were not brought against you.
Definitely.
Well, why do you think that was not done?
Well, multiplicity of factors, but I don't want to go into them because I even took action against the police service in court. The court decided not to, in their discretion, they thought that they couldn't give me that order. And therefore, I appealed to the Court of Appeal. And I tell you, I don't want to talk about the frustration I went through, and I abandoned it. Because from...
In court?
I'm telling you, from the High Court to the Court of Appeal, I had too many frustrations, which I have documented in my book, and I wouldn't talk about them here. At the appropriate time, it will be out.
These frustrations you thought were coming from
the court,
top?
The court. I wouldn't say the top. I said from the court. Because if I appeal against a ruling or a judgment from a high court, I wonder why it should be taking over 1 year and it will not even get to the high court.
Do you
to the Court of Appeal. And yet, I don't want to delve into those ones here, if you may excuse me on that, because these are court issues and I don't want to talk about it.
Do you think that the police service dealt with you fairly, respectfully, and rightly over this period?
Over this period, I don't think police was fair to me, but I don't blame them. I don't blame them for the same reasons that I espoused at IDEG. This is somebody who is being accused of high treason. Any IGP who will lift that interdiction will be gone, will be sacked. And therefore, they were also looking behind their shoulders just to be sure that they kept their position. The law says that if after 3 months you cannot institute or you are unable to institute any disciplinary action against an officer who is interdicted, you must lift the interdiction and he must start work. And the law also states that where the case in point is in court, the IGP should wait for the outcome of the case before taking any action against the police officer. So here we are. The CI is saying that, look, the case that was brought against me was not by the police. It was by the state. They took me straight to court. And I can tell you that, well, I want to leave some of those controversial issues.
No, but, go ahead.
But at the end of the day, you took me to court. And when you took me to court, I even appeared before court the first time, then later you interdicted me. If after 3 months you could not institute it, then you just have to let me go. If you had problems with the fact that you don't want me to wear uniform and work, there are other places that you could place me to work in the interest of the police service. I could even teach at the police college or the police academy or somewhere where I'll not be in the public view, if that's what you want. The police did not have the guts, the courage to do what they were expected to do. But I don't blame them. Because if we had an independent police, they would have done the needful. And therefore, I wouldn't blame the police for that raw deal.
We'll talk a bit more about the independence of the police, but let's stick with the interdiction. And now that you have been acquitted, have you got in touch since your acquittal?
Not yet. I mean, it's too early. It happened on Wednesday. I must relax a bit. I must speak my mind on the issue. Remember, it's been 4 years where my name has been dragged in the mud. And that's one of the reasons why I have to give such interviews, because then I had not been able to explain my side of the story. And maybe when I was even giving evidence, it was not giving that publicity. So this is an opportunity for me to explain my side of the story. And maybe from next week, my lawyers will begin to think of what to do.
So 36 years for the police service.
36 years, that's the only career I've known in my whole life. And look at how they bastardized my career. Taking me through this raw deal, at the end of the day, acquitted and discharged. But I always thank God that even before this time, the issue about unbailable offenses had been removed by way of a Supreme Court judgment. Otherwise, do you know what it implies? It would have implied that I'll be in custody from the 6th of November 2019 until last Wednesday. And the disadvantage, and I want to make this appeal to those who care about this, because it has happened to me. You don't know whom it's going to happen to. I never thought for a day that I was going to spend one day in police cells, but I did. And it was my time, and I had to go through it. Somebody else may go through it, so we must give a serious thought to that. Do you know that, and I believe, that if I were put in custody for the whole 4 years, I couldn't have defended myself the way I had done. One, I wasn't going to have access to my phone because the BNI would have seized my phone. It would have been with them all this while. My lawyers were not going to have access to that phone. And therefore, I wasn't going to be able to comfortably and competently have information extracted from my phone to defend myself. This is a caution I'm giving to other people because it's happened to me and it may happen to another person. And we must be very careful about this phone and the BNI just seizing people's phone and extracting information without court orders. And when they do, they can even delete others. When they can even get the information, then delete your whole information, which they did to one of the accused persons. I don't want to mention names.
Where would your career have been if this trial did not happen the last 5 years?
Irrespective of whoever will be the IGP, I think that I could be a deputy commissioner of police or a commissioner of police, because I've known situations where people have taken 1 year, 1.5 years, or 2 years to move from one thing to another, especially from assistant commissioner. So I could be a DCOP at West or a commissioner of police.
One of the things that heart-rendering things that we had seen on television throughout your trial was your wife.
Yeah.
And, you know, the impact we could see had been written all over her physically. Tell me, how is she doing? How did she receive this?
She's doing very well. Thank God for her life. And I think that she has had her own ordeals through this period. But she's not new to it. She knows the man she's married. And I've narrated to you some of the ordeals I've gone through in the past. Mm-hmm. She had been with me all this while in my police career.
What was the first thing that, you said to each other after the acquittal, the ruling?
We just hugged and I thanked her for her support. And that was it. She knew what I meant.
I see. When we come back, a bit more on this issue. Don't go away. Welcome back to Hot Issues. My discussion today is a really crucial one with ACP Dr. Benjamin Agordzo. What would you say the regrets are when you look back at the last few years? Is there anything you think you could have done differently?
Do I have any regrets, particularly with the police service? No, it is the police service that has brought me this far. The only job I've known, and remember I enlisted in the police service as a constable when I had finished sixth form and went through the ranks, did my first degree whilst I was in the police service, did my MPhil when I was in the police service on scholarship outside Ghana, and did my PhD when I was still in the police service outside Ghana. And the interesting thing, maybe, is this. It was at the time that I was interdicted first in respect of the Bulgar issue that I got a scholarship to go and do a PhD outside. So I was in Italy when I was recalled. And when I came back, I just had to appeal to the police service to give me steady leave to complete. So I don't really have any regrets.
But is there anything over the last 5 years or maybe even 6 that you think you could have done differently?
No, I wouldn't say differently, but maybe if I had any regrets, it's this particular 5 years. Particularly what they have taken me through. It's something that I don't think I'm too pleased with. Not because I've done something untoward, just for working and just for speaking my mind in a country, in a democracy, in a so-called democracy. Somebody shares an opinion, and as a result of that opinion, he's criminalized and then put through this kind of trial for 5 years, where you go to court on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you report to BNI. So effectively, 4 days out of the 5 working days is taken out from you. You could not do any work. You have family. You have been interdicted. A lot of your salary is cut off. And therefore, you've been disadvantaged in many ways. And yet you have to drive to court every day and back. You have to report to BNI. All these things are had financial implications, which were really telling. And I can also tell you that it had impact on my family, psychologically and emotionally and physically and everything. You have a family, and all of a sudden, everything was going well, and all of a sudden, everything is upside down.
I see.
How would that, how would you manage that?
How upside down do things get?
Financially, you are handicapped, okay? And all your allowances out there are no longer there. Friends have decided to abandon you. Once you have been tagged with this Coup and other things, people do not even want to call your phone because they believe that once you are called, their phones, the BNI could have access to their numbers and begin to trail them or question them. So I lost some of my best friends who have not spoken to me for the past 5 years and do not even have the courage to congratulate me now.
What would you say to those?
Oh, those people, I just say, I thank them for their lives and I thank them for the role they've played in my life. I think they are in my past. But I don't hold anything against anybody. I just thank God for my life. Sometimes you have to delete certain people from your life So somehow, they may have deleted me. I've also deleted them. And life goes on.
I see. But, you know, you talk about speaking your mind a lot. Do you think that as a police officer, perhaps you spoke your mind a little too much?
In what respect? Because whatever I said, for instance, the IDEP presentation, I didn't just go there on my own. The IGP was given an invitation. And then they suggested that since I had been working with them, especially on political vigilantes, they would prefer that I come. IGP approved it and allowed me to go.
I see.
Do you appreciate that point? And then on a platform where you share ideas, would anybody be criminalized for just talking about sharing his opinion on Arab Spring, which is a topical issue? People have even stood in their pulpit and then told the whole world how Arab Spring, Arab Revolution is going to sweep across West Africa. Somebody had told us, Arab Spring, Ghana. And he's still going around, and nobody has thought of taking him on. And I express opinion, and I am a criminal.
There's no denying that, you know, this trial has had an adverse impact on your life and, by extension, your family. Now, your lawyer has hinted of seeking compensation through the courts. Let's talk about that compensation you're looking for.
I would prefer not to talk about the compensation. That's an issue that is on the table. I may have further discussions with my lawyers, and then we may come up with whatever we want to. And that issue is actually not for public discussion. We just have to go to the court. My lawyer only mentioned it, and there is nothing wrong with mentioning it, just to let people know that this is what we may do.
You deserve compensation, don't you?
Definitely. You can't treat me. I mean, do you know what my family has gone through? Do you know how traumatized they are? Do you know how some of my members of my family have suffered because they are associated with me? There are things I wouldn't like to say on this platform, but I can tell you that family members have suffered because they are associated with me. Some of them have to be moved from one place to another on their jobs because of me. And I don't want to personalize issues because they are still doing their work. And by espousing, talking too much about these issues may not be too good for in their own, it may not be in their interest. So a lot of trauma had gone on. The only difference had been that I'd always stood firm and assured them that, look, I had done nothing untoward. I don't know how and when it was going to end, but I knew that it would end in our favor. And that was why I granted that interview the first day when I was acquitted. And I said, look, I knew that was how it was going to end, but I didn't know when it was going to end. And I was just thanking Jehovah for it.
I see.
It's been a very difficult almost 5 years of an officer who had traveled around the globe, been on his own, independent, travel around. I said it elsewhere, and I'm repeating, that if we have to go in for about 2 or 3 officers in the Ghana Police Office or maybe I may be among the first 5 group of police officers who have traveled most around the world. Teaching here, working here. All of a sudden, I returned from Liberia not 2 weeks before I was arrested, just to go and teach. And all of a sudden, your career collapses, your world collapses, and you are being disgraced. A tag has been placed on you. Nobody wants to talk to you. You lose your friends. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you've saved. 5 years without doing anything, the money will be off. Can you imagine what we have gone through? Right, so when we talk about compensation, it is in order. The state will have to compensate us, either willingly or we'll go to court.
I mean, you tell us that your finances took a hit. How have you survived the last 5 years?
By the grace of God. By the grace of God. And by the support of very reliable friends who believed in me. It didn't matter. Look, some of those friends never asked me, Ben, what happened? They just knew I couldn't have done it, and that was it. They never asked me, how did it happen, what happened? They've never asked me. They don't even have the details of what happened, but they just believe that, no, the man we know couldn't have gotten himself involved in any coup d'etat. And thankfully, God has vindicated me.
As we have noted, your reputation took a hit during this trial. Your finances took a hit during this trial. Your career had been almost washed down the drain during this. You would need to recover from all of that. How difficult do you think that recovery will be when you even tell us that people shunned you? People within your circle lost jobs and changed jobs because of you.
Recovery wouldn't be too much of a problem because having lived the same life for the past 4 years or more, I mean, we just continue with that life into retirement. Right now, even the little allowance they used to pay me, they've not been paying for the past 3 months.
You're gonna need a job.
I still, as for jobs, I'll get, because...
You think it will be easy after this trial?
No. Listen, I'll get some job to do. Definitely, by the grace of God, I'll get some job to do. Remember, I was telling people my area of specialty is unique. I did a PhD in human rights and politics. We have very limited people who have PhD in human rights. And maybe that's one of the things that helped me defend myself very well. Because the principles of human rights are the same principles that we hold in law. And therefore, that underpins our legal system. And therefore, I understood what I was standing in for, and I understood how I was going to defend myself, and also with the support of my lawyers. And I thank them for all the sacrifices they've made, where we have to sleep sometimes at 2 a.m., we have to go to home around 2 a.m., just trying to put things together. Recovery wouldn't be a problem because definitely I am a very composed person. I speak my mind. I could be a bit
and
bold
you're ready
enough,
for it.
And I'm ready to go for anything.
Let's talk about the independence of the police, something you have mentioned earlier. How bad is the situation with political interference in the police service?
Kems, I would rather we reserve this particular topic for another day, and I can assure you that if you decide to give me a whole interview on police reforms and the current situation in Ghana, I'll speak to it. But for now, to just make a comment or two on it, I would rather not comment on the current situation. The current situation in particular, I wouldn't.
What do you think about the current IGP?
The current IGP, I would rather not talk about him. But if you invite me to talk about policing issues and then rope in the IGP's activities, then I'll have a context within which to talk about him, so that it will not seem like I'm zeroing in on him.
I see.
Yes.
But there is a context, isn't there? At the time, you say he was in charge of Director of Welfare.
Yes, because you asked me about my welfare at the time, and he was in charge of welfare, and I expected him to do...
And today he's IGP.
Today he's IGP, and when he became IGP, at least he hasn't shown any interest in my case. Let me tell you something. At a point in time, I admired the military because they were even allowing a colonel to follow the military colonel to court almost all the time. Almost all the time. Followed him to give him that moral support and other things. Today, that colonel is out. He's been acquitted and discharged. Did I have that benefit? Nobody cared about me. Nobody thought about. Even at the time that I was arrested, assuming you are in the house with your children, you've been arrested as a very senior officer. And then you make appeal to the police. Look, anybody, because this is a politically inclined whatever, anybody could attack my family. Could you help that some patrols who passed there? Nobody even bothered. Nobody minded me at all. So I made certain appeals that, look, please, my family...
Officially?
They sent a delegation. I put my case across through the delegation, but nothing was done. And so my family was vulnerable throughout these 5 years, and particularly when I was in custody. When I'm home, fine. But when I was not home, much of the time, my family was very, very vulnerable.
And all of this was because of...
Nobody thought about my welfare. And maybe because they all thought, the man, we are getting rid of him. Maybe he's not coming back. And they managed to...
Or maybe they thought you did it.
Well, they may have their own, and I can tell you there were people who thought I did it, and the people were really happy, and I knew that they were happy because of their personal thoughts about me. You know, policing in Ghana is a very funny thing, and maybe I need to say this. You see, in the current police service, and I'm not talking about the current IGP, whether it was the past IGP or current IGP, sometimes your name denotes which political party you belong to. Your tribe, without even speaking, they have ascribed a political party to you. That is how bad the situation could be. That people who perceive you are called Agordzo, isn't it? You belong to a particular political party. It doesn't matter whether you do things overtly or your name is enough.
But do you? Do you belong to?
Throughout my 36 years in the career, have you ever heard anything about me in respect of politics? I told some people some time ago that when I handled the 2016 election, which brought MPP to power, was there any indication, did I do anything to suggest to anybody that I was NDC or MPP? I did my work together with Mr. Yohonu and the then IGP, Mr. Kudalo. We did our work that brought them to power. All of a sudden, they have ascribed a political agenda, whatever, party to me, and people are saying what they want. But they don't have any proof. Those who have decided that they belong to a political party, we know them. They have spoken about it. Have you ever heard me on any conversation or anything that I belong to any political party? No, I've never done that. And I would never do that because I am so professional at my work. And those I teach, those I work with, will tell you, look, this man doesn't talk about politics, but I talk about topical issues. Topical issues, irrespective of who is involved. And I'll speak my mind on it. And that's it. It ends there.
And you'll continue to do that.
And I'll continue to do that.
Thank you for sitting with us.
Welcome. I'm privileged to have been on this platform. And thank you so much.
We wish you the very best.
Thanks.
My guest today has been ACP Dr. Benjamin Agordzo, who's been through a 5-year ordeal trying to clear his name, as prosecution also insisted at the time that he abetted high treason in this country. Today, he's been acquitted and discharged, and he's been sharing his perspective the last 5 years with us. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm Kemeni Amano. I'll see you same time next week. Bye-bye.